This happened just a few weeks ago. I had just moved back in with my parents after my latest attempt at being a full-time content creator failed. My childhood home felt the same, but different. The walls were covered in posters from my favorite games, and I could smell my mom's cooking. It was comforting, but also a little haunting. I set up my old computer in the small room I used to sleep in as a kid. I was confident about my gaming skills. I thought going live would finally help me grow my audience. I clicked Start Streaming and felt that rush of excitement. But a lingering unease settled in my stomach, like I wasn't truly alone. During my first few streams, I heard a faint scratching sound. At first, I dismissed it. My parents had an old house, after all. The floorboards creaked and the pipes groaned. But as days passed, the noises intensified. They turned into scrabbling, like something was moving in the basement. My heart raced, but I tried to focus on my game. I was determined to succeed. Later, my audience started to comment on the shadows I didn't notice. "Is someone behind you?" they wrote. I felt a chill creeping down my spine. I turned around, but the room was empty. The only light came from my screen, casting strange shapes on the wall. "Maybe it's just my imagination," I said to the chat. But deep down, I felt something was very wrong. The whispers began a few days later. It was subtle at first, just like the scrabbling. Quiet voices floated up from the basement. I couldn't catch the words, but I felt the urgency in them. My anxiety grew. The shadows in my streams became darker, deeper. I avoided looking at the basement door. Each night, I grew more sure that whatever was down there was aware of me. By the time I hit 2 million subscribers, I was spiraling. My streams blurred into a mix of gaming and paranoia. I felt my sanity fraying. "Jake, are you okay?" people asked in the chat. I didn't know how to answer. Each time I glanced toward the basement, my heart raced. Something was down there, and I wasn't alone in this house. Then came the night that shattered everything. I was playing when the whispers intensified. They called my name, soft and yet filled with an unsettling urgency. "Jake," they said, just a breath beyond my reach. I froze. The fear gripped me like an icy hand. I turned to the basement door, and it slowly creaked open. It seemed impossible, yet it happened. The door swung wide, revealing only darkness. The shadows coiled and twisted, and I felt something pull at my mind. My audience was silent. Only the sound of my own heartbeat filled the air. I don't know what I saw then, but I knew I couldn't look away. Breath caught in my throat. I barely managed to speak. Guys, something's happening." But the words felt hollow. I was left with that door wide open. I realized I had wanted fame, but maybe not like this. Whatever lurked behind that door had other plans. I didn't know if I could keep streaming. I didn't know if I could keep living without knowing what was waiting for me. I sat there, staring at the open door, heart pounding in my chest. The darkness seemed to pulse, teasing my curiosity while simultaneously filling me with dread. I knew I should close the door, shut out whatever was lurking, but my body felt heavy. I was stuck in some weird limbo. "Jake, what's going on?" The chat exploded with questions. I could sense their excitement mixed with genuine concern. I wanted to scream for help, but the words eluded me. Then I heard it again, my name. Clearer this time. "Jake!" I finally forced myself to stand, a tingling anxiety shooting through my limbs. I stepped toward the door, feeling the weight of my audience's gaze, even though I knew they couldn't see me. I crossed the threshold, peeking into the darkness. The air grew cold, wrapping around me like a thick fog. Suddenly, a loud clang echoed from within the basement. I jerked back, nearly tripping over my own feet. I glanced at the chat again. New messages flooded in. "Dude, are you seriously going in there? This isn't a good idea." I took a deep breath, mustering the courage to walk closer. A part of me wanted to turn off the stream. I could just log out, claim some technical difficulty, and get away from this madness. But something else drew me toward that darkness. I had 2 million people watching. I had to know what was happening. I grabbed a flashlight from my desk, shaky hands flicking it on. The beam cut through the blackness, but it felt weak against whatever lurked there. I took one more step inside. The cold air prickled my skin. The basement was musty, filled with old boxes and forgotten memories. I hadn't been down here in years. The whispers grew louder, surrounding me like an echoing choir. "Jake," they chanted. I raised the flashlight to the corners of the room, searching for the source. I felt a rush of panic growing, a knot tightening in my stomach. That's when I noticed it. Among the clutter, something flickered in the beam of my light. A reflection. I aimed the flashlight closer and gasped. It was an old mirror, cracked and dusty, leaning against the wall. But as my light hit it, the reflection shifted. For a brief moment, I swore I saw a figure standing behind me. Just a flash of a shadow before it vanished. Then, the basement door slammed shut behind me. The sound was deafening. I whipped around, heart racing. I pushed against the door, but it wouldn't budge. I was trapped. "Guys, guys!" I shouted into the stream. "I need help!" But the room was silent, except for the whispers now, swirling in a chaotic storm. The mirror pulsed in the darkness, and I felt drawn to it. Just before I lost my nerve, I reached out. The surface felt warm, almost alive. What was happening? I didn't understand it, but I had to know. And that's when everything spiraled out of control. The moment my fingers touched the mirror, I felt a jolt, like an electric shock coursing through my body. The whispers grew intense, a cacophony of overlapping voices. I pulled my hand back, stunned. This was no ordinary mirror. It felt as if it were alive, as if it were waiting for something. "Jake, please," someone in the chat typed. "Get out of there." But the messages faded to background noise. I was too distracted by the swirling shadows in the mirror. I leaned closer, mesmerized. The surface shimmered like water disturbed by a stone, and I could see shapes moving inside the glass. They were people, faces blurred and distorted, mouths opening and closing in silent screams. What was this? Why was it showing me this? I let out a shaky breath, fighting the urge to swoon. I wanted to look away, but my eyes remained glued to the mirror. There was a presence there, something so potent that it made the air around me feel thin and choking. The door behind me thudded violently against the frame, as if something were trying to get in. I spun around, instinctively clutching the flashlight like a weapon. The echoes of the whispers twisted into something more sinister. "Let us out, Jake," they chanted. "Join us." "Join you?" I whispered incredulously. My heart raced faster, pounding against my ribcage. I didn't want to join anything. I wanted to escape. Then I saw it. A hand, pale and skeletal, reached out from the mirror, stretching toward me. My breath caught in my throat. It seemed to materialize from the depths of the glass, fingers curling with a slow deliberation. I stumbled back, bumping against the door, trying to push it open. "Guys, I'm freaked out!" I angrily shouted into the stream. "This is not funny!" Yet I knew that nobody would find this funny. Things were quickly spiraling beyond a joke. The hand retreated for a moment, as if considering, then crashed hard against the mirror's surface with a force that resonated through the room. I could almost feel the vibration in my bones. The mirror rippled violently, and I swear I saw my own reflection twist, my eyes pleading and terrified. Then everything went dark. The flashlight flickered and died, plunging me into a pitch-black void. Panic clawed at my chest. I pressed my back against the door, my heart drumming in my ears. "Guys, are you still there?" I could barely hear my own voice. Suddenly, the whispers came back. This time they were clearer, like a chant, pressing in from all sides. Jake, Jake. They seemed to echo from every corner of the basement. Then a new sound. Someone was in the house. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, thrummed in the darkness. I wasn't alone. I wasn't sure what I'd let in, but now it felt like the walls of the basement were closing in. "Someone's here," I gasped, scanning the void with my eyes, but I could see nothing. My body went rigid with fear. I had to get out. I had to get away from whatever was coming for me, whatever was trying to drag me into that mirror. And that's when I felt a cold breath against my neck, sending chills down my spine. My heart raced, a drum in the heavy silence. I froze, barely able to breathe. The whispers intensified, swirling like a tempest around me. The cold breath lingered. It felt like icy fingers tracing my spine. I didn't want to turn around, but I had no choice. I had to face whatever was behind me. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and turned slowly. There was nothing but shadows. The darkness was thick, oppressive. It seemed to shift and breathe. I could hear myself swallowing hard, the sound echoing in the silence. "Guys!" I shouted again, desperation creeping into my voice. "I need help, now!" My phone screen glowed faintly as I fumbled with it, trying to turn it back on. I didn't know if anyone would hear me, but I had to try. Then, just as I got the screen to illuminate, I caught movement to my right. A figure, dark and indistinct, swayed slightly before solidifying into a haunting likeness of someone I recognized. My pulse quickened as I realized it was a distorted version of myself, eyes hollow and expression empty. "Jake," it mouthed, but no sound came out. The figure reached a hand toward me, glowing softly in the dim light from my phone. I stumbled back, colliding with the door again, panic rising like bile in my throat. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice breaking. The figure didn't respond, just continued to stare through me. There was something about its eyes, something that felt both familiar and terrifying. "Get away from me!" I screamed, feeling more out of control with every passing second. I was about to bolt for the stairs when I heard the shuffling again. A distinct sound this time, like someone dragging their feet across the basement floor. My flashlight had betrayed me, but now I was trapped between the door and the thing that tried to mimic me. I could either move forward into the darkness or face the doppelganger stalling my escape. I was drawn to it, something invisible pulling me closer. It was like staring into a warped reflection that both intrigued and horrified me. "Jake, why?" the figure mouthed again, but this time I could feel it in my bones. It wasn't a question, it was an accusation. The weight of its gaze felt heavier, suffocating. I wanted to deny it, to shout that I was not like this, but my voice was stuck. Then I heard a faint, familiar tune echoing through the dark, the same one I had been humming just before the stream went live. It was a silly song, something I used to play on repeat when editing videos. Now it felt haunting, reminding me of better times, days filled with laughter that now felt so distant. My mind raced. Why was that playing now? What connection did it have to this place, this moment? Before I could gather my thoughts, the whispers escalated into a frantic chorus, drowning out any sense of clarity. "Jake, join us! Join us!" They were urging me, almost pleading. I stood there, paralyzed by fear. I had to make a choice, face the figure that seemed to represent my worst fears, or be consumed by the darkness that wanted to pull me into the mirror. Just as I mustered the courage to step forward, the basement door slammed open behind me with a force that sent me stumbling. The silhouette of a person stood framed in the doorway, backlit and shadowy. "Jake?" the figure called. It was a voice I recognized, piercing through the chaos. I felt a surge of hope, then dread. As I turned back toward the mirror, the doppelganger had vanished. The oppressive air shifted again, and the whispers fell silent. The darkness surged, and I knew then that whatever pulled me in was now waiting for my next move. The moment hung between us, electrifying and dangerous, and my pulse thundered in my ears. "Jake, are you okay?" the voice asked again, stepping closer. Fear mixed with confusion as I took a breath, bracing for what was to come. I knew something wild and sinister was just beginning to unfold. I squinted into the darkness, trying to make out the figure standing in the doorway. As the light from my phone cast a dim glow, I saw a familiar face emerge from the shadows. It was my best friend, Ryan. Relief rushed over me, quickly replaced by the chilling reality of my surroundings. "Jake, what's going on?" Ryan asked, his voice edged with worry. I don't know," I stammered, struggling to articulate the terror I had just witnessed. There was something that looked like me. Ryan stepped into the basement, his expression shifting from concern to confusion. "Like you? What are you talking about? You look fine." Before I could reply, the whispers began again, barely audible. "Join us, join us." The voice seemed to seep from the corners of the room, echoing off the walls. The atmosphere thickened, pulling at me. "Do you hear that?" I leaned in closer to Ryan, my heart pounding with urgency. "Hear what?" His brow furrowed deeper as he glanced around, the flashlight beam flickering over the darkness. I shook my head, trying to regain control. "Forget it. We need to get out of here." I turned to head toward the stairs, but something caught my eye. A small, glinting object lying on the ground where the doppelganger had stood. My breath caught in my throat. "What is it?" Ryan asked, stepping toward me as I knelt down to pick it up. It was a silver locket, cold and smooth. My hands trembled as I opened it, revealing a tiny, distorted photo of myself inside. I felt a sharp pang of dread deep in my gut. This is mine," I whispered, unable to look away from the image. "What do you mean?" Ryan leaned over my shoulder to get a better look. "How is that possible?" "I have no idea," I answered, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I think it was trying to tell me something." Before I could process what this meant, the air turned heavy and oppressive again. The locket felt like it was burning in my palm. The whispers crescendoed, urging me to join us. "Jake, we need to get out, now!" Ryan shouted, backing toward the stairs. I couldn't move. I was trapped in this cycle of confusion, dread, and an inexplicable pull from the darkness. The basement felt like it was closing in, shadows creeping closer. "Please!" Ryan was frantic now, his eyes wide. The urgency in his voice was my only anchor. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog clouding my thoughts. Then, everything went dark. My phone flickered and died in my hand, extinguishing the last source of light. A low rumble echoed through the basement, followed by an eerie silence. "Ryan!" I called, my voice echoing into the void. No response came, and panic surged again. I couldn't even hear his footsteps. My heart raced, and I swung my arms out into the dark, feeling for him. "Jake, I'm here!" The voice was muffled, distant. "Where are you?" I demanded, fear spiraling. With a flicker, the locket glowed faintly in my palm. It illuminated a little, but cast long shadows that danced. I could just make out a silhouette in the corner of the basement. That's when I saw it. Another figure, Ryan, but he wasn't alone. The basement filled with muted whispers, now echoing both our names. "Join us," they beckoned. I knew we were walking a perilous line, and every passing second felt like a countdown to something terrible. I had to act fast. Something was coming for us. The shadows rippled around us, drawing closer. I could sense the distinct weight of dread settling on my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. The figure in our midst, was it really Ryan? The glow from the locket revealed a familiar face, yet something felt off. The details were just a little too sharp, the smile a little too wide. "Ryan?" I called again, my voice tremoring. "Is that really you?" His lips parted, but instead of answering, he tilted his head slightly, as if appraising me rather than responding. My stomach twisted. "What's going on?" I pushed out, as the whispers grew. Louder, swirling around me like a storm. "Are you okay? Join us, Jake." The words spilled from his mouth, but they were different, as though they were pulled from the very darkness surrounding us. I took a step back, heart hammering against my ribs. "No, this isn't right!" I yelled, backing away. The locket glimmered, illuminating the darkness around me. Colors shifted, and shadows morphed into figures, many vague faces staring back at me. Were they all trapped here? I couldn't think straight. I just had to escape. The whispers intensified, a cacophony urging me to surrender. "Join us. Be one of us." "No!" I screamed. "I won't!" Frantically, I shoved the locket into my pocket. It burned against my skin, a reminder of whatever connection it had to this horror. "Oh, but you already are," the figure that looked like Ryan said, his voice low and chilling. "You can't leave. The basement is your home now." I needed to fight back. My instinct screamed at me to find the stairs and flee this nightmare. I turned and sprinted toward the stairs, but I stumbled in the dimness, nearly losing my balance. "I can't stay here," I shouted, my voice cracking. "Jake!" Ryan's figure lunged toward me with surprising speed. Panic surged, pushing me to move faster. I was nearly at the stairs when something cold gripped my arm. It was Ryan. The way he held me felt wrong, too strong and too desperate. "You can't go. You need to understand," he said, his voice a mix of urgency and something darker. I jerked away, but he tightened his grip. "No, you don't get it." I could barely pull free from his hold. With a surge of adrenaline, I wrenched myself away. I didn't wait to see how close the shadows were. I bolted up the stairs, adrenaline pumping through my veins. As I reached the top, the door slammed shut in front of me, sealing my path. The sound echoed through the basement like a death knell. I pressed my body against it, panting. Breathless, I fumbled for the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "Let me out!" I yelled. "Jake, listen." Ryan's voice was muffled and desperate beyond the wood. "You have to face it. Just let go." In that moment, a heavy realization struck me. We weren't just in the basement anymore. This place had twisted around us in ways I couldn't begin to understand. The dread that had creeped in now morphed into a gnawing panic as I realized something was still inside with us, waiting for me to accept its invitation. "What do you want from me?" I shouted into the darkness, the shadows inching closer. "Join us, Jake." The voices echoed, inharmonious and beckoning. My breath caught again, and I squeezed my eyes shut, a surge of understanding flooding through me. I didn't need to join them. I needed to find a way out before whatever was lurking grabbed me too. But then something gripped my ankle, pulling me down into the void. I fought it with every ounce of strength. I could still escape. I had to. Then silence seized the air. I hit the ground hard, the impact shaking me as something dark enveloped my leg. Panic clawed at my throat as I kicked out, feeling nothing but the cold slick of whatever had grabbed me. With a desperate lunge, I swung a fist in its direction, but my hand struck nothing, just empty air. I scrambled to my feet as the silence stretched. My heart thundered, but I couldn't hear anything beyond my own breath. The shadows hung lazily, almost amused, as if they were waiting for my next move. Where was Ryan? Had he vanished? "Get away from me!" I shouted, my voice shaking. The shadows rippled in response, but they didn't advance. I peeked over my shoulder, half expecting Ryan to appear again, but there was only darkness. I needed a plan. Searching the room, I saw the faint outline of a window on the far wall, half hidden behind clumps of shadow. Could I reach it? I sprinted toward it, veering around jagged crates and abandoned furniture that loomed in the dark like forgotten sentinels. Sweat dripped down my forehead, and with each step, the whispers grew louder. They thrummed in my skull, an unbearable cacophony taunting me. "Join us," I heard again, the chorus twisting into laughter. I felt my resolve falter, the invitation clawing at my mind. What would it mean to join them? Would it be an escape or a trap? "Stop it!" I cried out, shaking my head as if it could drown out the noise. My fingers brushed against the window, the glass icy against my skin. I grabbed hold of the frame, pulling myself up and peering outside. My heart sank. The ground below looked familiar, yet all wrong. Houses skewed at impossible angles, trees peeling back to reveal hollow trunks. It was like staring into a warped mirror. Was that the world I had come from? My breath hitched at the sight. There was no way I would go out there. "Jake," a voice whispered, soft and inviting, slipping through the cracks in my resolve. I turned back toward the shadows, searching for a face but finding none. "Don't listen to them!" I shouted into the dark. I could feel the weight of the darkness pressing against me. I leaned into the window frame, pushing against it, as I felt something cold wrap around my waist, tightening like a vice. That's when I saw it. A pale hand, barely visible, reaching out from the shadows. My heart dropped. It wasn't just any hand. It had a familiar ring on its finger, the same one I remembered Ryan always wearing. "Jake, it's me!" I heard him call again, this time from behind me. I spun around, eyes wide, searching for him, but there was only the hand emerging from the depths. "Stay away!" I yelled, panic rising again. The grip on my waist tightened, pulling me down as the hand inched closer like a predator anticipating its prey. "Join us, Jake!" "No!" I screamed as I pulled myself back toward the window, now fighting against both the shadows and the looming figure. I wasn't ready to give in. But just as I thought I had the strength to break away, everything went dark again. Then the air shifted. Something had changed. I gasped as the weight lifted suddenly, as though someone had flicked a switch. I stumbled back, blinking against the darkness, only to find myself standing in an entirely different place. It was still dark, but the oppressive tension had eased, replaced by an eerie stillness. The room was small and cramped, and the walls pulsed with a faint, sickly light. I squinted, trying to make sense of it, and caught sight of a tangled mass of cables coiled around the floor like serpents. My heart raced again. It felt like I had stepped into a forgotten storage room, filled with relics from another time. Old electronics, radio equipment, and dusty boxes littered the space. A low hum vibrated through the air, and I felt it rattle deep in my chest. "Ryan?" I called, my voice now shaky. The silence stretched back at me, unyielding. I felt utterly alone. I turned, instinctively searching for an exit. The faint light flickered as I approached a door at the back of the room. I pressed my ear against it, listening for any sign of life. "Ryan?" I whispered again, but all I got was a whisper of the wind on the other side. Then I saw it. A screen flickered to life, displaying static before morphing into images. Faces flashed by, friends, family, people I recognized. Each one wore an expression of joy or disbelief, their voices mixed into a cacophony of laughter and applause. But among them, I caught sight of Ryan. His face shone bright, surrounded by bright lights, an energy that made my heart ache. 2 million subscribers! He exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. We did it! The memory washed over me like a wave. How we had celebrated that night, live streaming in front of thousands. I remembered my nervous laughter, the cheers from our fans, and the gnawing sensation that something felt wrong beneath the surface. I pulled back from the door, trying to process it all. What happened to us? I asked the empty room. Silence responded. Suddenly, the door rattled. My heart dropped as I stepped back. The handle turned slowly, and I braced myself. The door creaked open, revealing a dark corridor bathed in shimmering light. Before I could think, I darted through the opening, my feet moving on instinct. I made my way down the hall, the images still swirling in my head. Just as I reached the end, a figure stepped into my path, a silhouette emerging from the shadows. I froze, and my blood ran cold. It wasn't Ryan. Jake, the figure said, voice low. I squinted, trying to make out who it was, but a sense of dread washed over me. I recognized that voice. You? I whispered, my stomach twisting in knots. And you're just in time, the figure continued, a smile spreading across its face. Its features were obscured, but I felt an unsettling familiarity tugging at me, like clouds gathering before a storm. I took a step back, panic welling inside me. "Stay away from me!" I yelled. But the corridor behind me darkened, and I realized with a jolt that I was trapped. I pressed myself against the cold wall, my heart pounding in my ears. The figure stepped closer, and panic surged. "What do you want? Where's Ryan?" A low laugh echoed down the corridor. "You're looking in the wrong direction, Jake." The voice was familiar, bittersweet, like hearing an old song you couldn't quite remember. But the warmth in that familiarity chilled me to the bone. I knew I didn't want to hear what was coming next. "Is this a joke? Some kind of sick prank?" I demanded, trying to sound defiant, but only succeeding in sounding small. I glanced behind me, weighing my options. The darkness swallowed the corridor, a void that felt alive and hungry. The figure stepped into the light. My breath hitched. It was someone I had thought I'd left behind. "What have you done?" I almost whispered. "Done? Oh, I've done so much." They smiled, revealing teeth that seemed sharper than I remembered. "You remember the live stream? The views? The fame? That's what brought you here." "No, that's not true. We were celebrated, and it felt—" I trailed off as memories of that night flickered in my mind again. The numbers climbing, the energy in the chat, but beneath it, a growing dread I had forced aside. But wasn't it wonderful? Jake leaned closer, his grin widening. "Everyone loved you. You were on top of the world." "Until it wasn't," I shot back, feeling the heat rise in my chest. "What happened to Ryan?" "Ryan." The name rolled off his tongue like poison. "He's just a memory now, much like the rest of this." He waved a hand dismissively at our surroundings, and the walls shivered, flickering with a pulse. "He couldn't handle the truth. But you're different. You're ready." "Ready for what?" My throat felt tight. "To understand what really happens when you reach for the stars," Jake said. And as he gestured again, shadows twisted and morphed around him, creating shapes that were almost human. They hovered, pulsing softly, as if alive. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted. I felt the air grow thick with the weight of unspoken secrets. "I want to leave," I managed to say. "Leave?" Jake chuckled darkly. "You're not going anywhere until you accept what's happening." Then everything around us shifted again, and the walls began to close in. I could feel pressure mounting on my chest.
The dim light intensifying. The bizarre figures in the shadows started forming into faces. The audience that had once cheered for us now twisted into grotesque specters, their grins widening into malicious sneers. I turned, desperately searching for an escape. "I need to find Ryan." "You can't find him here, Jake," Jake said, his voice echoing ominously. "But trust me, you'll see him soon enough." The corridor darkened further, and panic coursed through me, urging me to run. I took one last look at Jake's grinning face before sprinting away, hoping desperately that I could escape whatever fate awaited me. As I kept running, though, the sounds of laughter grew louder, voices overlapping in a haunting chorus that seemed to mock me. "You can't escape, Jake, not from this." That's when I saw it, a door glowing faintly at the far end, pulsing like a heartbeat. But darkness loomed behind me, and I could hear Jake moving closer. The walls trembled, and with every step I took, I knew I was losing time. As I reached the door, the heat of my fear surged through me. The laughter behind me twisted into a derisive cacophony, every jeer an echo of my failures, of my choices. I grasped the doorknob, the cool surface grounding me for a fleeting moment. I turned it slowly, praying it would give way. The door creaked open, revealing a faint light that poured into the darkness, illuminating a space that felt eerily familiar. The familiar sight of my childhood home washed over me, a cozy living room filled with the warm glow of a fireplace, posters of my favorite games on the walls. But there was an unsettling distortion to it all. It was too bright, almost blinding. I hesitated, glancing back as the shadows surged forward, chasing me with relentless determination. I could already hear the whispers growing louder, 100 voices calling my name, urging me to join them. But this time, I wouldn't dance to their tune. I leaped through the doorway, the threshold feeling like a separation from one world to another. With a rush, I stumbled forward, disoriented. The moment I crossed into my old room, the door slammed shut behind me. I turned, panting, as the shadows collided with the barrier, but they recoiled, unable to reach me across that threshold. Something had changed. I could feel it, a barrier of familiarity that kept the darkness at bay, while remnants of its influence loomed just beyond. But the relief was short-lived. As I caught my breath, a flickering chill enveloped the room. Light danced off the walls, creating shapes that barely resembled anything human. A dark silhouette emerged from that glow, and I instinctively knew who it was. "Jake," the figure said softly, a voice chillingly like my own. The figure stepped forward, becoming sharper, clearer, revealing a twisted version of myself. "Do you like how it feels?" the doppelganger began, a smile spreading on its face, eyes brimming with a hollow.
"You made it out! But did you think the game was over?" I shivered. It was hard to tell where the real me ended and where this imitation began. "What do you want from me?" I demanded, my voice trembling but steadying as I faced the reflection of my fears. "Just to understand," the figure replied, stepping even closer. "There's a place for you among us. You can reach heights beyond your wildest imagination, if only you abandon the hold back to the past." The light dimmed, pulling me back into thoughts of clawing shadows, of what I had faced. The relentless pursuit of success had nearly consumed me. I couldn't let it happen again. "No," I said firmly, pushing against the edge of my fear. "I won't give in." With a flick of my wrist, I reached for the locket still resting heavy in my pocket. I had once thought it a treasure, a symbol of my achievements, but now it felt like a weight attempting to drag me down. "I don't need you!" I shouted, and opened my palm. The locket's surface shimmered, and the echoes of all those trapped whispered back, rising in a surge. But instead of submitting, I concentrated on the warmth of my memories, the laughter of my friends, the joy of every moment that felt real, not crafted narratives of online entertainment. The shadows twisted, howling, fighting against the light that surged from the locket's depths. "Jake, join us!" my doppelganger cried, its distorted form flickering as if struggling to hold itself together against the onslaught of light threatening to engulf it. "You can't escape your true nature." "I'm not like you!" I yelled. "I've had enough of the shadows." With a shattering jolt, the room exploded in light, the shadows retreating under the glow. I felt something shift deep inside, a release, the letting go of fear and desperation that had bound me for so long. I seized that moment, propelled forward, and ghostly hands reached out but fell short, grasping at nothing while I broke free. And then, silence folded over me. I blinked again, and suddenly I was standing outside, no longer in my childhood home. The sky above spun in twilight hues, and familiar faces approached me. Friends who had cheered me on, parents who worried for me. I realized then they hadn't truly vanished. They were waiting, breathing life into moments I had accepted, wanted to escape. My heart ached with the weight of lost time and overwhelming relief. I opened my mouth to speak, but that familiar uncertainty lingered. "Jake?" someone said, concern lacing their voice. I hesitated, lost in the swirl of connection and fear. "Am I still me?" I thought, as the familiar warmth of their presence enveloped me. The answer remained just out of reach, too complex and unsettling to confront. So, instead, I looked toward the sky once more, where the remnants of shadows still lingered in the corners of my mind. Maybe I'll never know, I thought, as whispers beckoned just outside my thoughts. But I'll keep fighting. And while the questions brewed in the background, stifled yet prosperous in my mind, I took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever came next.